Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and we actually already have an update for yesterday's story. If you didn't tune in, we talked about the possibility that Xbox might be reassessing their multi-platform strategy because Xbox fans have reacted very negatively to the news. Well, the thing about Microsoft is that their messaging isn't always necessarily clear, and CEO Satya Nadella kind of added to some of the confusion that we just so often see around the Xbox brand. So I want to give you my take on what he said, and then we also got some news for a previously closed PlayStation studio, as the former PlayStation boss gave an opinion about why it happened. If you enjoy this type of content, though, do make sure to hit those buttons below, like and subscribe. It goes a long way in helping the channel grow. But let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with Sega and yet another success story for them in 2024. Sonic X Shadow Generations just released, and it's already sold 1 million units worldwide. It's also one of their best reviewed 3D Sonic games ever made, as we talked about earlier in the week, which, does my heart a lot of good because I want to see more Shadow content like this. He's always been my favorite in the series, all the way back to the Sonic Adventure days, and the fact that it's reviewing and selling well, this is a very good sign that we could see more of him in the future. That, in my opinion, is absolutely fantastic news. But in the meantime, I really just have to applaud Sega. They have had an absolutely fantastic year with games like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload, Unicorn Overlord, Metaphor ReFantazio, that's another Game of the Year candidate. They also released Shin Megami Tensei 5 and now Sonic X Shadow Generations. All of these are great games that reviewed well, and all of them except for Vengeance reached that 1 million sold milestone. Now, to be fair here, Vengeance is more of the complete edition, and, it did sell an extra 500,000 copies, which is still really, really good. So, yeah, I think Sega has really been the best publisher for 2024. I don't even think it's close in this case. And for all of you Sega kids out there, it's almost kind of like a new golden age for the Sega brand. Now, speaking of iconic platforming franchises, yet another game from that era is making a comeback, and apparently relatively soon. That's Croc Legends of Gobbo's Remaster. They actually teased this game a few months back, but now we have a brand new gameplay trailer and some new details. I think in terms of its visuals, it looks about as good as what you would expect for a remaster like this. This isn't a full-blown remake, but I think for anybody who likes these type of games, this is going to do the job, and I think the visuals are just packed with nostalgia. I mean, for somebody like me, I just like the way that era looks, especially with some of the HD improvements. I think the more exciting part about this announcement, though, is the confirmation of smooth, modern controls. Croc was one of the early 3D platformers, and, while a lot of people have fond memories of it, the one glaring issue with those early 3D games was just in how they controlled. So it looks like they're going to try to fix that up. Now, unfortunately, though, we still don't have an exact release date. All they're saying is that it's going to release sometime soon, but we do have platform confirmations, which includes the Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and apparently GOG on PC. So there's not a Steam version, which I definitely think is an odd move in this case, but there it is. Croc is on his way back. Okay, so I want to go and talk about this Xbox situation because there's once again confusion brewing about their messaging. I mean, out of all the big three, Microsoft definitely seems to have the most difficult time in delivering a consistent message to their fans. So just to kind of get everybody caught up here, yesterday there was a rumor going around that Xbox is going to pause their multi-platform strategy because the reaction for the Indiana Jones PS5 version was received very negatively from Xbox fans. Now, that was just a rumor from Xtasys TV, which, he's gotten some things right in the past. He's also gotten some things wrong. So we'll kind of see how that plays out over the next year or so. However, since that rumor, the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, spoke about Xbox, and let's just kind of take a look at what he said. So he said, "We are bringing great games to more people on more devices. With our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, which closed October of 2023, we've added hundreds of millions of players to our ecosystem. We now have 20 franchises that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue, from Candy Crush, Diablo, and Halo, to Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, and Gears of War. And with Xbox Cloud Gaming, we continue to innovate to offer players more ways to experience experience the games that they love, where, when, and how they want. And then finally, and here's the part that everybody's just so focused on, he said, we brought 4 of our fan favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time as we continue to extend our content to new platforms. So the way that a lot of people read this is that this implies more of their older games could be ported over to Nintendo and PlayStation in the future, which honestly wouldn't necessarily be the most shocking news in the world. I mean, right away, I think Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush, as 2 such examples, those were already ported to the PlayStation 5, and I think there's a pretty good chance that they could also end up on the Switch successor as well. And, that could simply be it. That could actually be what he's referring to here. But what we've seen because of this statement is just a lot of speculation for games like Halo, Gears of War, Starfield, Fable, Forza, and just the whole slate. You guys know how this works. People are automatically going to assume the biggest games are going to come to all platforms. And I mean, again, I think Microsoft does this to themselves because they're not great at communication. But despite what Satya Nadella said here, I don't really think that he's confirming anything that we don't necessarily already know. Some games will be Xbox exclusives while others won't be. In fact, Satya Nadella did also put out this statement today as well, which reads, growth of our gaming business is determined by the overall active user base through Xbox-enabled content, availability of games, providing exclusive game content that gamers seek, the computational power and reliability of the devices used to access our content and services, and the ability to create new experiences. So there is that mention of exclusive content, which kind of takes us back to what we kind of already know. And that's that some games will be exclusive to Xbox while others won't. The big question is just kind of which games won't be. I mean, we know that Call of Duty will be a multi-platform franchise, just like Minecraft has been for a very long time. We also know that other ABK games will likely be multi-platform, and there might be other situations where an occasional game gets ported or is multi-platform upon release, like Doom: The Dark Ages. Xbox is in kind of a position that we've never really seen from any other game company before. They are very much a first-party and a third-party company all at the same time, as they manage a lot of different franchises, big-time franchises, across 3 different publishers, being Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, and Activision Blizzard. So they're navigating all of this in a very non-clear way. And I think that's part of the reason that Xbox fans get so frustrated with them, because they keep welcoming this online speculation rather than just simply stomping it out. So if I were to give them any advice at all, I just think they need to definitively clear things up before their eventual next console. Right now, I 100% expect that some of their games will be exclusive, like Gears of War E-Day, Fable, and Perfect Dark, while others won't be, mainly being Activision Blizzard games. But this idea that any game can be ported to the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo at any given time, I feel like they do need to communicate that situation a little bit better than just having these vague responses that leads to all of this speculation online. If they really want to sell a console in the future, and by on occasion they absolutely do, then I think that these are important subjects that they need to clear up with fans. Is there a threat that Gears of War E-Day, Fable, and Perfect Dark might appear on other consoles in the future? I mean, right now, I don't believe that's the case, but there is that speculation out there, and it's because they keep welcoming it in. Xbox, you kind of have a communication problem, and I think you need to kind of fix it. But I don't know. What do you all think about this? Do you think that people are just overreacting to Satya Nadella's response, or do you think that Xbox needs to set better expectations? Do you think they need to communicate better than by putting out these vague responses? Now, before we go, we do have one more thing to talk about, because the former PlayStation boss, Sean Layden, was in the news once again, as he implied the closure of Sony Japan Studio was because they struggled to reproduce past successes, which he believes is something that many Japanese teams have struggled with since the shift to HD gaming. He said, sadly, I think you can see the problem across the Japanese market. At large, there's a lot of legacy, historically super talented teams that haven't tasted success for a while, and are still struggling to get back to it. Now, he mentioned that companies like Capcom and Sega have bounced back. Clearly, we talked about Sega earlier. They are absolutely killing it right now. And he did say that Square Enix is now on the right path because they're starting to focus on their own home once again instead of focusing on overseas. But he believes that Japan's studio falls into that category of not being able to transition over to the HD era successfully. And I mean, the thing about Japan Studio is that if you look at their games from really just the last generation alone, we're not even going to look at the PS3 generation. Let's just look at the PS4 generation, because Japan Studios made some really good games for the PlayStation 4. They made The Last Guardian. They helped out with Bloodborne. They also assisted with several other games as well. They released Gravity Rush 2, and they also launched Astrobot Rescue Mission for the PlayStation VR headset, which has since turned into an iconic PlayStation franchise. Now, NEC, that wasn't a huge time success, but I think overall, in terms of quality, Japan Studio was still making good games. I don't think quality was necessarily their problem. Instead, they almost kind of remind me a little bit of Tango Gameworks, or really even the current Ubisoft situation. You know, games like Hi-Fi Rush, The Evil Within, and Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. These are all beloved games, albeit not necessarily big-time sellers. And that's what these companies are looking for. For a lot of these companies, it's boom or bust, and they just care about how it affects their bottom line. And I just think that Japan Studios wasn't cutting it in that aspect. You know, they were making good creative games like they've always made, but they were mostly AA games that didn't necessarily push as many units as Sony's AAA blockbusters. But I'll say this much. I think that if they would have kept Japan Studio, I think their current lineup for the PS5 would have probably looked a lot better than it has this past year. I'm just going to throw that out there, but let me know what you all think about what Sean Layden said here. Do you agree with him or not? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, hit that subscribe button and peace out.